I'd like to welcome Coordinator Center for Earth Studies, Dr. Anandita Roy Saha, all the faculty members present here today with us, and the participants of this course. First of all, I would like to thank Professor N.H. Ravindranath for accepting our invite and giving us opportunity to hear you on this occasion, sir. Now, I would like to request Coordinator Center for Earth Studies, Dr. Anandita Roy Saha, to welcome and introduce our eminent speaker for today's lecture session. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Neha. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Professor Ravindranath. This is really an honor for us to have you here. Indraprastha College for Women and a Research and Learning Center in the college, Center for Earth Studies, which has the Department of Environmental Studies as one of the pivots of running this Research and Learning Center, has organized this online certificate course. And we are truly honored to have, as Neha was saying, as an eminent speaker, a renowned scholar like Professor Ravindranath to address our participants. This is an online certificate course which we are running for disciplines who are interested, who are committed towards environmental protection and ecological balance and all the issues related to the current planetary crisis. So this is a course which is, this is for Professor Ravindranath. This is a 1-month-long course, online certificate course on climate, community and conservation. As the name suggests, we are trying to address the question of climate crisis, the role of communities, and all of us, how we can be part of the conservation efforts. And who can be a better expert than you, Professor Ravindranath, to tell us about the climate crisis. So I welcome you to Indraprastha College for Women to this online certificate course. Professor Ravindranath has been associated with the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, the premier institute of the country. He was part of the Center for Sustainable Technologies at IISc Bangalore, who has years of experience, research, advocacy, publications, authorship, and fine scholarship in issues related to various dimensions of climate change, climate mitigation assessment, greenhouse gas emissions, inventory in land use sectors, impact of climate change and vulnerability assessment in forest and agro ecosystems, adaptation and climate resilience, forest ecology, clean development mechanism, and REDD+ projects. He has worked in all these areas which cuts across several dimensions. As we know, climate and climate-induced crisis and other changes are absolutely multidimensional. So we are having an expert here, Professor Ravindranath, who has been an author of several reports of the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. For my young students, I would just like to remind you that the IPCC report, Assessment Report 6, AR6, has just come out a couple of days ago, so you must be familiar with IPCC. So Professor Ravindranath has been an author of several IPCC reports, WMO and UNEP, focusing on mitigation and other sectors. He has been an author for the Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services reports. He is the Scientific Advisory Panel member for Global Environmental Outlook. He is a UNFCCC, that is United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change, UNFCCC, expert reviewer for GHG, Greenhouse Gas Inventory Reports. He is a member of Science Policy Initiative Expert Committee of UNCCD. He is a member of the Scientific Advisory Panel of UNEP, Global Environmental Outlook. So you can see the kind of scholarship Professor Ravindranath has and the long years of experience, and I'm sure we are going to benefit out of it. His scholarship expresses itself in 8 books so far, 150 peer-reviewed research papers. Those associated with research and understand what it means to have 150 peer-reviewed research papers, out of which 60 are on climate change. He has worked on advisory capacity with various state governments on climate change projects. He has been an expert for several World Bank, UN projects on climate change. He has been associated with the editorial boards of several top international research journals. And finally, last but not the least, recently there has been a study conducted by Stanford University, which has recognized Professor Ravindranath as one among the top 2% of the world's most cited researchers. I have nothing else to say after this. We are really honored and humbled, sir, to have you here. I'm sure all of us are going to learn a lot from you. Welcome to Indraprastha College once again, Professor Ravindranath. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Neha and Dr. Anandita. It's a pleasure talking to students and faculty of Indraprastha College. I've heard a lot about it, and you can upload the slide in the meanwhile. You know, you heard about climate change. I'm sure you're undergoing a course. I'm sure every day you must be hearing different dimensions of climate change. You know, climate change is one of the, number one or the dominant global environmental challenge facing both nature, humanity, both, and it's a global environmental crisis. That means it requires global, solutions. And this also climate change also is a crisis of the future. It's not something, it's today, tomorrow, next year, next 5 years. No, it's going to be there for hundreds of years. In fact, climate models, if we run the models for 200, even 300 years, we can tell, yeah, after 300 years, what will be the sea level rise? What percent of India will be completely submerged? Actually, most of India will be submerged. Anyway, if there is in another 100 plus years. And again, climate change, students, it's an interdisciplinary science. It requires, research, knowledge generation, and teamwork from multiple fields, so socioeconomics and anthropology to paleoecology to atmospheric chemistry, physics, engineering, economics, all aspects. So climate change is a great area of learning for students in the coming decades. So today I will talk about climate crises, because climate change, if it happens slowly in a linear way over decades, people can adapt to that, nature can adapt to that. But the problem is, as you can see from the pictures, there have been extreme droughts, extreme floods, and in many parts of the world in the recent weeks, and extreme heat stress in Canada and Europe and even some parts of India. And forest fires, you heard about forest fires in California to Greece to name it, Canada. And recently, 2019, there was a forest fire in Australia where 10 million hectares of forest were burned, with lakhs and lakhs of birds, animals, many other species were completely destroyed. So forest fire is an unprecedented scale that's happening. So next slide, I will try to give a flavor of some of these issues. I'm sure some of, next slide, please. You all know certain things about climate change already. Climate change already happening. I don't need to tell you. Earth is warming. All global measurements, this is all based on measurements for the last 100 years, show that all parts of the world are warming. And next slide. And according to recent IPCC report, the Earth has warmed by 1.2 degrees, globally, compared to, say, 100 years ago. We always compare 50-year average between 1850 to 1900, and now, compared to that long-term historical mean, what it is now. So it's already 1.2 degrees. You also know, under Paris Agreement, there's a target of holding global warming at 1.5 degrees. And we're already 1.2 degrees. So we're almost close to the dangerous threshold. If you look at this graph, it's very clear. Without the blue one, without the greenhouse gas emissions from human or anthropogenic activities, the world would have, don't have been any, there'll be some year-to-year fluctuations, but it would have been a stable Earth. But unfortunately, just look at it in the last 50 years, Earth has already warmed by 1+ degrees. Next slide, please. That means that due to the human activities, Earth is warming. And IPCC concluded recently saying the recent changes in climate are widespread. That means it's global and it's rapid. It's happening so fast. Some parts of Canada, the mean temperature in August was supposed to be something like 20, 22 degrees. They had plus 18 degrees. Siberia, they had more than plus 10 degree warming this year. So it's a rapid warming in some places, and it's becoming intensify. The uh, floods in Karnataka and Kerala have been happening for last 3 4 years every year. So these are all unprecedented changes which happened never happened in thousands of years. Next slide, please. And here, of course, it's also due to, I don't need to say this, it's because of the human action, what you call anthropogenic activities, because of deforestation, burning of coal, petrol, natural gas, and many other activities. Next slide, please. And climate change is already, people used to think, oh, climate change, we are, models talk about future decades, 2030, 2050, 2100. Many people used to think, even in the government till a few years ago, that climate change is, for the future, not now. We have so many problems. It's true, we have so many problems now. Delhi or villages, everywhere there are problems, but this is a problem it is already hitting us. I mean, look at the floods, and in unprecedented floods in Pakistan, in Thailand, in Australia, in Europe, in some parts of America, even it's in Kerala and Karnataka. These are all changes already happening now. Next slide, please. And if anything, they'll become more severe. I think, as students, you should know the difference between what is weather, what is climate variability, and what's climate change. Weather is something, what's the temperature in Delhi today, or what's the likely, rain possibility in the next few days or few weeks. What's this year's season? Will it be a hot season, or will we get more rain or less rain than the long-term average? Weather is something for a given place in Delhi or Bangalore or in Kerala. Okay, this year, this month, next 1 week, that is weather. Temperature, precipitation, wind speed, cloud, all those things. But climate change is long term, on a decadal scale. We never say climate change for January 2022. We never say that. Climate change is over 2020 to 2030, 2030 to 2050. So we talk about climate change as a long term trends in mean warming, means in sea level rise, mean changes in precipitation. If there is a long term trend, because historically also we had ups and downs, we had hottest years, coldest years, we had famines, we had floods even 100 years ago, 1000 years ago. But what is critical now is it's a consistent warming, continuous warming, consistent increase in rainfall, and so on and so forth. These are the statistically significant long-term changes. So you should know the difference between weather and climate change. Climate variability is year-to-year variation, season-to-season variation. That is climate variability. Next slide, please. And of course, you also hear about the word called risk, vulnerability, resilience, adaptation. These terms you hear in all your classes. Risk is same as the risk of dying in a airplane crash or an accident in a car and all. It's same risk. Risk is often represented as a probability of likelihood of a hazardous event such as drought, flood, cyclone, multiplied its impacts, how much damage it will cause. If it is cyclone or a flood, that is a risk. What's the damage caused by a probable, cyclone or hurricane or flood? That is a risk. Vulnerability is how people, rich are less vulnerable than the poor. In any Delhi or Bangalore or even Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, poor people who live in low-lying areas, they are likely to be flooded. They will have more malaria and so on and so forth. That means vulnerability is propensity or predisposition to be impacted. If you're poor, if you're vulnerable, if you're weak, you'll be more, like they said, COVID. If you're weak, COVID will attack you. If you have many other diabetics and other problems, COVID will attack you. In the same way, that means they're more vulnerable to COVID attack than healthy young people like you. So the vulnerability is something like that. No, resilient adaptation means resilience is inherent capacity of a system to cope with change. Some people can cope with certain impacts, some cannot. Some impact, like sea level rise, if sea level rises, people have to leave some parts of Kerala or Bangladesh or even East Coast. They'll have to move inward. That is something they simply cannot cope. But resilience, sometimes, if there is a delay in rainfall, you can change crop variety from a 120-day rise to 90-day rise. That's something you can do. Certain there are resilient varieties to delay in rainfall, or there are resilient varieties to drought of wheat or sorghum or millets and so on. Adaptation is something government, scientists, and banks can do. We can provide insurance so that if the crop fails, we can help the farmer. We can provide employment if the crops fail through Narega, MG Narega, and so on. That's adaptation. Next slide, please. So you should know some of these. Click one more time. Click one more time. See, there are three components to climate change. One is hazard. Hazard is, floods, drought, cyclone, hurricanes, heat stress, heat waves, all of them. That they are hazards. Exposure is who is exposed. Himalayas exposed for certain risks. People in Assam are exposed to flood risk. People in Kerala, low-lying areas exposed to. They are the exposure component. People in drought-prone areas of Rayalaseema are exposed to drought. Like that, they are the people, and the community and the ecosystems are exposed to these hazards: drought, flood, cyclone. Vulnerability is the capacity of the farmers, capacity of the ecosystem to cope with any hazard impact. So the impact of climate change is a combination of a hazard, how severe a drought, flood, cyclones are, exposure, who is exposed, how many people are in the mountain slopes who will be exposed to, say, landslide, how many people live in very close to sea will be impacted by cyclones, and so on and so forth. Vulnerability is the capacity to absorb the shock, or no, some people cannot, some people migrate, and some people die, and some cattle die. That is the capacity to cope with any impact of the hazard. Next slide, please. We should remember these three components. And let's look at very quickly about climate change projections and impacts. Next slide, please. And yes, what causes climate change? You all know, burning up petrol, diesel, natural gas in cars, and so on. Is cement industry, steel industry. These two are the big enemies of climate change. They emit a lot of CO2. And again, agriculture, cultivation of rice leads to methane emissions. Management of cattle leads to methane emissions, and deforestation. Like that. All these such factors. There are many more factors that contribute to emission of greenhouse gases, which leads to global warming. Next slide. And if you look at the emissions of fossil fuels dominate: petrol, coal, natural gas. These are three main fossil fuels which we extract from Earth and put into the atmosphere by burning them. You can see how it's been continuously increasing, contributing to CO2 concentration. The other is deforestation and agriculture, also is contributing, but it's more or less stable. That means in the years to come with development, we in India, people in Brazil, Southeast Asia, China will consume more electricity, more diesel, more petrol, more air conditioners, more cars, etc., etc. That means more emissions. Next slide, please. And if you look at, if you, as I told you, climate change is about the future, about 2030, 2050, 2100. So what the world will be like in 2030? What will be like 2050, 2100? There's no one world. What's the population of the world? How much coal will be consumed? How much electricity will be using? We don't know. We have to have scenarios. So scientists develop scenarios of low emissions, moderate emissions, and high emissions. High emissions is what they call social scenarios, such as 8.5. Moderate scenarios 4.5. Low means 2.6. 1.9 is too low. We'll have to forget it. But already our emissions are close to socioeconomic pathways 2.6. Most people expect the world will be around SSP 7.0. So the warming, everything. You can see CO2 is a major, if you look at the third graph, CO2, the warming could be between around 3+ degrees by 2100, and CO2 emissions will dominate, accounting for almost close to 3 degrees, and others such as methane, N2O contribute to little less. So next slide, please. So the share of CO2 and methane and so on. If you look at the emission of CO2 currently, I think the world is emitting about 45 billion tons of or gigatons of CO2 globally. And in future, of course, it can go on increasing at the current rate. You may emit even 120 billion tons per year. There's enough coal in the earth. There's enough petroleum. Scientists know we can go to even Arctics and extract maybe coal and natural gas and petroleum. So supplies, quite a lot of supplies available for humans. So we can continue to burn like this, and we'll be on socioeconomic pathway of 8.5 or 7, which is very high. But if you have to reduce emissions and achieve 1.5 degree warming by before them by 2050, 2100, that means if you look at you have to be in the blue. That means we have to blue line. Our emissions have to stop declining immediately. We should stop using, fossil fuels, or use it more efficiently, or use renewable energy. So the many options available. Next slide, please. And again, of course, what's the impact of these different levels of emissions? If you continue on 8.5, or if you touch 7, or if you're on 4.5, what are the likely emissions? Let's forget, 1 degree. We already crossed 1 degree. So we should look at 1.5 degree, which will be very soon. Probably the new IPCC report says by 2030s, the world could touch 1.5, because the Earth has already warmed by 1.2 degrees. So that means we're already between 1.5 and 2 degrees soon, in a decade or two. But if you look at the issue here, if you look at the map, the whole world is warming, but different parts of the world warm at different rates because of number of factors. But if you look at the Arctic Circle, Canada, Russia, northern Europe, and the northern part of China, they will warm much more than tropics like India. But everybody will warm. All will be impacted. Next slide. Next slide. If you look at the global mean temperature, you should know global mean means it's a mean of oceans and land, forests, everything, cities. That's the global mean. When we say global mean has reached 1.2 degree, that means it's a combination of observations from oceans, land, and forests and everything. But land will warm much more than the oceans. So we should remember that global mean 1.5 degree doesn't mean Delhi will warm only by 1.5 degree. Delhi could warm by 3 degrees. Even the global mean is only 1.5, because it includes oceans also. So here, of course, under different scenarios, levels of warming, scientists will never say this is what's going to happen. No, there's a range of possibilities. It could be between warming by 2100, could be between 2 or 2.5 to 5, depending on how we humans manage our economy, our energy system, our forests, and so on. Next slide, please. And again, if you look at the rainfall, the biggest problem is temperature is something global. Everywhere it's warming. Oceans, of course, the rate of warming is different in different parts of the world. Rainfall is always a big challenge for scientists, because it's such a complex phenomenon, especially the Indian monsoons. And all the models show, as of now, even latest IPCC report says that most parts of the world will experience higher rainfall. We are already experiencing higher rainfall. The rainfall would be very high. In a scenario, if you look at the part of India in 2 degree warming, there is quite a bit of northwest and so on, Western Ghats, rainfall will be very high. If you look at the 4 degree warming, which is possible, according to me, in the next 50 to 70 years, there'll be heavy 30 to 40% increase in rainfall. Even now, we have floods in Assam to Kerala, we have floods. We have floods in Delhi also. When there is a rain, I think last week there was a flooding of large parts of Delhi. So imagine, now only we're having flooding. If the rainfall increase by 20% to 30% to 40%, imagine the flooding that will happen in cities. And in Assam to Kerala to Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, there was flooding, unprecedented flooding this year. Maharashtra, Bombay gets flooded every year. So this is a challenge facing the humanity. Next slide, please. And of course, if you look at warming within India, Institute of Science, we did some modeling. You can see warming, most parts of India will warm, but some parts, would warm more, maybe Delhi around that area. Warming, climate change in a given place determined by global factors and also some regional and local factors. So different parts, but all parts of India will warm under a scenario 8.5, which is a high emission scenario. It's quite possible if world doesn't do much, then we are on to this 8.5 scenario. The warming will be between 2 to 3.5 degree or 4 degrees in different parts of India, which is very bad news. Next slide, please. And if you look at the rainfall, again, even under moderate scenario, left, high emission scenario, right, you can say rainfall is increasing everywhere. And rainfall would increase in some parts much more than others. If you ask me, more rainfall is always more dangerous than less rainfall. More rainfall means high rain. One rain can destroy all the crop. One rain can destroy all the homes, bridges, cattle, everything. So more rainfall, we need to be worried about it very much than, even droughts we can manage. We can have irrigation, water management, so on and so forth. We can extract groundwater, manage, recharge ground. We can do many things. But increased rainfall, simply there's no way you can collect the water. All you see the flood that happen every year in different parts of India. Next slide, please. And of course, as I told you, there will be damage, there's heat stress. I'm sure people in Delhi, you're all used to heat stress. In Bangalore, luckily, we don't get that high level of temperature. But even here also, it's warming. Delhi, imagine, it's already many days, many weeks, it touches between 40 to 45. Imagine if it becomes 45 to 50, how hot it will be. It's already hot. It will become, flooding, you've seen everywhere. Many islands could be completely, for example, Maldives could be completely underwater in less than 100 years. So they will all come to India. So forest fire all over the world, and droughts. You can, interestingly, there will be some parts of the world there will be increased droughts, and in last parts of the world there will be increase in rainfall and flood events. So next slide, please. So there are many damages or impacts due to climate change. One of the interesting thing that the new report which was released on August 8 showed was that temperature, extreme heat, thousands of people died in Canada and US, and even in India every year on an average 2 to 3,000 people die. In Pakistan, 3 to 4,000 people die of heat stress. Even in Delhi, UP, people have read people die. Very often this data is not recorded very well. So what is like once in a 10-year extreme event that was imagined like that, it just happened once in 10 years. But under 1.5 degree, 2 degree scenario, it can happen almost 6 years. 6 out of 10 years, you can have extreme heat temperature in Delhi. So, or imagine if once in a 50-year event, extreme heat, unbelievable, 47 degrees in Delhi. Let us say it used to happen once in, say, 50 years and so on. But now, under 2 degree scenario, which is most likely, or even 4 degrees, see how many years. That means every second year, every third year, you could have such massive event. In France in 2003, there was temperature reached 3.38 degrees for several days. 3,000 people died. Lakhs of people were admitted to hospital. All the old people and pregnant women, they were all hospital were flooded, overflowing. There was no place which was worse than any COVID crisis, and hospitals had to shut down. People had to be treated on the streets. I mean, it happened in Paris, which has the best healthcare system. So imagine if extreme heat strikes Delhi or North India. Imagine the crisis. Next slide, please. This is one of the severe. Next slide. And more important or equal important is a high precipitation event. High precipitation, I told you, it leads to flood, damage, everything, property, homes, streets, even lives, and so on. But what is to be like a once in 10-year event, under a 2 degree scenario, it can happen twice in 10 years. Under 4 degree, it can happen 3 times. Imagine the massive floods that Germany experienced, last month. If they start happening every alternate years, there's no way people can, survive in those towns. So extreme events will become more frequent. That's a big message from the new science. Next slide, please. And of course, sea level rise. One of the impacts of climate change, which is irreversible, is sea level rise. Sea level rise happens because of warming leads to expansion of the ocean. Water expands, quantity of water, and then melting of Greenland ice, melting of Arctic ice. All these things happening. You can see. So even in Antarctica, many ice, huge they're all melting. Even the glaciers in Himalayas are melting. So sea level rise can continue even up to by 1 meter. If there's 1 meter, imagine how many people will be drowned in Kerala, in Bangladesh, and many islands will be completely drowned, completely submerged. So sea level rise is one of the very important irreversible impact. Another such impact is the loss of biodiversity. If you lose Western Ghats forest, or if you lose Amazon, according to some models, Amazon, which is about 600 million hectares or so, Amazon could become a grassland before the end of century under some scenarios. Imagine the biodiversity that has got. Imagine the carbon that's stored in Amazon. Imagine the contribution of Amazon, evapotranspiration to hydrological cycle. If Amazon goes, if you ask me, the world goes, with that. It affects global water cycle, affects hydrology, it affects global climate, it affects global biodiversity, everything. Some of these impacts are irreversible. Next slide, please. And of course, the impact on agriculture, I'm sure you all have heard, with every 0.5 degree warming, scientists say there'll be 5 to 10% decline in crop yields. All crop yields will be adversely, negatively impacted. At least in tropical countries, maybe in Canada or Russia, with warming and what they call length of the growing period increases, maybe more area can be brought under wheat and sunflower and so on in Russia and Canada. But in most part of the world, no, it will be a negative impact. Next slide, please. Imagine, the population is growing and demand for food grain is increasing. And imagine if it declines by 10%, 20%, 30%, India produces 300 million tons. Imagine if you have 10% less means 330 million tons less. 20% means 60 million tons. If the whole world is experiencing shortage, you can't even buy even if you have dollars. So it's a big challenge. Again, IPCC provides this range of pictures, just give you at 1 degree, at 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 4 degrees, what's the level of impact. White means there is little or no impact. If you go towards dark brown, very high impact. You can see we are already 1 degree plus. 1.5 will be reaching soon, in another 10, 15 years. See, dryland water scarcity would increase even at 1.5, 2 degrees. Soil erosion would increase, vegetation loss, forest loss, wildfire damage is already increasing. It will happen. Permafrost, in Siberia and so on, it would melt, ice would melt, and so earth is exposed, and all the gases in the soil will be emitted. Tropical crop will decline, like in India, decline. Food supply instabilities would increase. You 1 year you'll have extreme flood, next year you'll have extreme drought. So food supply, instability and leading to changes in price. Next slide, please. Similarly, another diagram is how it will affect corals. In Australia and in, uh, in some parts of southern off the coast of Tamil Nadu, there are coral reefs. They're already, in fact, they're bleaching in Australia. I'm sure you've heard, you must have seen many, Discovery Channel movies on how corals are disappearing and so on. Mangroves. So fisheries also will impacted. Fish move as the ocean warms. Fish starts moving away from the existing location. They start moving north towards northern latitudes. Fish biodiversity would change. Fish productivity would change. Again, Arctic region. People say soon, in a decade or two, you will have a ice-free Arctic Ocean. In a few years' time. Imagine, there are some positive things. You can want to explore more minerals and oil there and damage the earth more. But the negative impact would be sea level rise. Terrestrial ecosystems, forests, grasslands will all be impacted. Coastal flooding, crop yields, tourism, heat related morbidity. So you can see, even at every half a degree warming, there's a massive impact on the globe. We may think, how does it matter if Delhi is 1 degree warmer, 2 degree warmer, or Bangalore is 3 degree warmer? It doesn't matter, a little bit more. I sit in the air conditioned room or whatever. But natural ecosystems, crops cannot survive. Wheat in Punjab cannot survive even a 1 degree, 2 degree hot wind, evenings, in November, December, when the Rabi crop is grown. Even if it is 2 degree hotter in the night times, crop will decline. So everything is sensitive. We humans can live, as I say, from minus 50 degree to plus 50 degree. We can live from Mongolia and Siberia to Pakistan, where it's 50 degrees. We can live, but not nature. Next slide, please. And of course, there are all kinds of ranking. See, the whole world is vulnerable to climate change. Everybody is at risk, but some are more at risk than others due to climate, drought, flood, cyclone, hurricanes, diseases, and everything. India is one of the, I think India is in the top 11 to 20 countries out of some 190 countries. You can see the number one are Philippines and Bangladesh. Obviously, there'll be cyclones much more. They are most vulnerable to climate risks. India is also in the top 20. Actually, according to some other risk, India is number 7 in the world. The smaller countries are all above us is Ethiopia, Mozambique, Ghana, and also such small countries. But India is a massive country at 1.3 billion people. We are vulnerable in the top 10 countries, according to some others. Next slide. So that means India is at a huge risk of climate change. Next slide, please. There are many such assessments which show that risk is very high for India. Next slide. I think something happened. So climate change, I think slides, something happened with the slides. Maybe Neha can.
So I'm just sharing it again. Just there
No,
was some.
no problem, it happens. So the critical issue here is India is one of the most vulnerable countries. So that means we should be as much worried or more worried than anyone else. So obviously, as I told you right in the beginning, climate change is a global environmental crisis. That means it requires global action. Just India alone cannot do, China alone cannot do, Bangladesh cannot alone, Europe, not United States, but everyone has to join. So let's look at what government of India is trying to do and what the world is trying to do. I'm sure, yeah, you are aware of some of these things. Next slide, please. And if you look at what India is trying to do, just before, I'm sure some of you have heard of, or most of you have heard of Paris Agreement in 2015, where the world leaders met, including Prime Minister Modi, Barack Obama, everyone went, they met and they took some decisions. Just before that, all countries are asked to submit to UN what you will do, what India will do, what China will do, what United States will do, what Bangladesh will do. So each country sent, okay, these are the targets for us. India said, if you look at the third bullet point, our carbon intensity of GDP would decline by 33 to 35% compared to 2005. With energy improve, you can produce more with using energy more efficiently or using solar energy. So that means your carbon intensity of GDP would decline. So, and second, the government said 40% of electricity would come from like hydroelectricity and solar, wind, and so on. And then the government also said we'll sequester carbon by growing trees and forests in about almost 30 million hectares, sequestering about 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon. And government by 2030, that means you have to plant another 20 to 30 million hectares of new forests to meet this commitment. Again, India also said that we'll do everything to help our communities, fishermen, dryland farmers, coastal communities, people living in Assam, to help them to adapt to cope with climate change. Well, some things we are doing, some things we are not doing. So this is what government has promised. Similarly, all governments have promised, but studies show that if you put all the what governments have promised, richest countries, poorest countries, still the world will warm by close to 3 degrees. Whether our target is only 1.5 degree. Next slide, please. If you look at the Paris Agreement, it was where all the 195 countries met. Next, they are meeting in Glasgow in United UK in November. I think I'm sure the Indian Prime Minister Joe Biden, with all presidents, prime ministers will go there to take stock of what we agreed in 2015 for certain things, what we have done so far, what we should do next 5 years, 10 years. So next slide, under Paris Agreement, three things are agreed. One is to hold the global warming between 1.5 to 2 degrees. As I told you, we're already crossed 1.2 degrees. So we have only a very short margin left to reach 1.5, which according to many scientific studies is a threshold for many ecosystems. Some of the, as I told you, like sea level rise, melting of Arctic ice, loss of biodiversity, forest fire, simply they're all irreversible. And second point, they said we have to build capacity, build resilience in communities to adapt to climate change. Third, they said about making sure that rich countries pay poor countries to mitigate climate change, adapt to climate change. Of course, these are all big. There are many such. There are 35 articles. This is one of the articles, but most important. Next slide, please. And here, of course, I'm almost coming to the conclusion. I'll just give you a flavor of some bigger issues. To limit global warming, we need to have a strong, rapid, and sustained reduction of carbon dioxide coming from fossil fuels and deforestation, burning coal, natural gas, reducing methane from rice production. We are not saying we need to stop rice production, but there are techniques available to reduce emissions from rice production. Again, cattle, we have to manage cattle better. We have a lot of unproductive cattle. We should manage the cattle, to produce more. There are cows which give you 30 liters of milk. There are cows which give you half a liter of milk in India. So we need to have proper balance of everything. So that means, as I showed in one of the graphs, if you don't do anything, today emissions are about 45 billion tons. You could even touch 120 billion tons if the Paris Agreement fails, and if a government fail in Glasgow when they meet in November, or all the prime ministers, presidents, if they fail to agree, okay, we'll do what we want, then we are in trouble. We will continue to burn more and more petrol, coal, natural gas, forests, and so on, and climate change will be irreversible. Next slide, please. And of course, I'm sure you have heard about in your course Sustainable Development Goals. There's a clear link between sustainable development and climate change, mitigation, adaptation, and economic sustained economic development. So there are all these goals. Again, Government of India has agreed to all these goals, like there'll be no poverty, zero hunger, clean water, climate action, clean energy, so on and so forth. They're all linked. If you address climate change, you'll be addressing many sustainable development goals. Or if you address many sustainable development goals, you'll be addressing climate change. You'll be addressing biodiversity. You'll be addressing, droughts, floods, many things. They're all linked. Next slide, please. I think I'm so coming to conclusion. Climate change is already happening. There is enough scientific evidence, especially there are so many articles you may have read in the last few weeks that this year it has changed the attitude of people towards climate change. Even those who are skeptics, who said, no, no, what is climate change, where it's happening, it'll happen not now after 50 years. But after seeing, the forest fire, the heat waves, in United States, in Canada, some cities experience 49 degrees. Canada, is a cold country. It will be under snow for almost three-fourths of the year. 10 months in a year, it will be under snow, but they had 49. In Italy, the experience in Sicily, 49 degrees, unprecedented. Imagine Delhi. Imagine if Delhi also would experience some extreme temperature like that, who knows, it could be like 50 degrees plus in Delhi in the next few years. So that has changed. Extreme events, floods, droughts, cyclones, forest fires have changed the attitude of people. People realize now climate change is happening now. You listen to Prime Minister Modi, Prime Minister Johnson of UK, President Biden of US. They all say climate change is happening now. We have to address it now. That's see, already agriculture, forests, grasslands, oceans, they're already vulnerable to climate risks and extremes. And you can't do, what can you do for the oceans if sea level rises? I mean, you can't build a wall all around thousands of kilometers of coastal area. There's no way. If there's a forest fire, there's nothing. Drought plus high temperature, forest fires in US and so on. Simply, we cannot do anything. We can lose all the forests in 1 year. And I'm telling you, that's what happened in some parts of Canada, US, and even Greece. Greece islands were completely burned. In fact, not a single tree was left just a few weeks ago. So global warming is already close to the Paris Agreement threshold of 1.5 degrees. But soon we may, who knows? You're all young, many students. By the time you become like a professor like me, one day the world could be 2 degree or 3 degree warm. So then you will have to face all the the worst crisis. Even now, the world is unable to cope with 1.2 degree warming. Many countries, rich countries, poor countries. So imagine by the time you become like a old professor or old whatever uh, politician or something like that, the world would have completely changed. So plus, it's not just climate change. We have so many other environmental problems. The land degradation, soil erosion, groundwater decline, reduce water storage, and pollution of water. I can go on listing environmental problems. So we are already having air pollution, everything in Delhi. So we're already having so many environmental challenges. Climate change is on top of that. So each feeds the other. Climate change will make others worse. Like climate change will worsen groundwater recharge, which will worsen land degradation, and like that. So there are enough environmental challenges. Climate change will exacerbate that. So I think everyone has a role to play. As I told you, at a global level, they have to do certain things. At a national level, certain things have to be done. At a city level, state level, Delhi level, we have to do many things. I'm sure the state government in Delhi is subsidizing electric cars. Hopefully, electric cars are more efficient with respect to climate than diesel, petrol. It also reduces the local pollution. So there are many positive aspects of addressing climate change. We have to use energy efficiently. We have to use renewable energy. We have to use all materials. We have to recycle everything. We should conserve forests. We should plant more trees. All simple things. Thank you very much. Thank you, Neha.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a captivating and engrossing lecture. Sir, I would like to inform everyone, all the students here, the house is now open for question and answers. If you have any query, please do type in the chat box. Okay. So first of all, I would like to ask you a question. So, according to the latest report from IPCC, they have separately mentioned that India is going to see there would be more frequency of India experiencing extreme weather events like or natural disasters like cyclones, heat waves, droughts, and floods are going to be more and more frequent in India in the next coming years. So, sir, who can be better than you? So I would just want, what do you suggest? What should be the action plan of India so that we can try to negate those impacts as much as we can? So your suggestions on that?
We have to do a lot. I think everybody is doing a lot. For example, nowadays if there's a cyclone, you rarely hear about hundreds of people are dying, or thousands of people dying, unlike in the past, because of early warning systems and so on. So I think firstly in India, generally, whether it's a drought or a flood, most of the time we were able to, after the drought has happened, we try to provide relief. After the flood has hit Assam, we try to provide relief. We need to we have disaster management authority, and there are many programs we have to implement them more efficiently. And there are a lot of research is required, what type of housing is required, what type of infrastructure is required that can cope with cyclones, hurricanes, floods, what kind of bridges. All the bridges in Kerala were washed away, and even in Germany all the bridges were washed away by flood. So it's a big challenge that we have to consider climate change in all our planning, in all infrastructure activities, in all asset creation, in buildings, in bridges, everywhere, in energy systems, power transmission lines. We have to consider climate change, and there are technologies available for everything. So we need to, for developing countries, adaptation is the only challenge, because adaptation is local. I know at a level in Orissa, in West Bengal, in Kerala, you have to do something to protect the people. You have to help dryland farmers, drought-stricken farmers, in Gujarat, Rajasthan, and Andhra Pradesh. So there are many technologies available with respect to water management, use of right type of varieties, crop varieties, and what we call contingency planning. There are 100 technologies available. We really have to implement them. As a simple thing like IMD, Delhi provides weather advisories every week, but not even 1% of farmers access that. So they should know, farmer in Uttarakhand or Kerala should know what's the likely chance of a rain or whatever, next 1 week, so, or next 3 days. But it's available on their mobile, they can know, but not even 1% of like that. There are many things that are available. We need to use them more efficiently.
So one of our colleagues, Dr. Naveen Tiwari, is asking. He's saying, "Thank you so much, sir, for an information-packed session. Global warming affects many processes in biological ecosystems. Different species of flora and fauna change their habitats in response to changing environmental factors. Migration pattern of some bird species may also be subjected to modification. What broad changes in natural ecosystems and species distribution we may expect in response to the ongoing global warming process?" Thanks.
A recent report on global biodiversity assessment mentioned a million species under threat due to climate change and, of course, other factors. As I told you, one feeds the other. The human intervention, human degradation of all environment, plus climate change. The global biodiversity said 1 million species, known species under threat. So obviously, and there'll be large scale shifts in forests. Forests move, like plants move, sorry, animals move, even plants move. Historically, they have moved. But the rate of climate change is so fast that even forests cannot migrate and even animals cannot migrate. So probably, as I told you, in Australia, 10 million hectares were burnt in 2019. Data available on how many million, animals, insects, birds were destroyed. the loss could be simply unbelievable. Uh, so just one fire in Australia in 1 year destroyed millions of birds, insects, and uh, invertebrates, vertebrates. Everything was destroyed in one go. So there'll be large scale shifts in vegetation types, large scale shifts in habitat. But the problem is, millions of years ago, climate was changing, ecosystems were moving. But now there are towns, villages, roads. Where will they move? So the only option now is loss of millions of species as predicted by global biodiversity assessment.
So Rishita Gupta is asking, Sir, I have heard air conditioners are bad for the environment. How true is it? And if I, on a personal front, stop using ACs, will it make any impact? Because consumption and sales of it are ever increasing.
No, definitely AC is, in your household, AC is the number one consumer of electricity. You consume a lot of electricity compared to lighting, refrigerators and all that. So ACs, and the more people will buy ACs, and with warming, more ACs will be bought. So obviously it will contribute. It's like a feedback. Warming will lead to increase use of AC, lead to increase emissions. So the only option is obviously you need to live in comfort. How we can, for example, in Delhi, if all roofs are painted white, it will bring down the temperature by a couple of degrees. In each house, top floor, simple thing like painting roof white. Like that. By planting more trees, you can reduce the urban heat island effect. So there are a few things you can do. Definitely.
Thank you, sir. Divya Goyal is asking, is burning crops in Punjab only reason for the smog in winters in Delhi?
No, that's one of the reasons. There are many other reasons. Delhi itself is situated in a place like that. If it was like Chennai or Bombay or Bangalore, the wind will blow away. So you won't have smog like that. But local pollution, dust from construction activities, plus crop burning, everything, automobile emissions, or everything together, it's a combined effect for smog for in Delhi.
Himanshu is asking, Sir, how can we connect our leisure with life of Earth? Because we all live in world of technology, our houses are full of plastic products. Is it possible to generate wealth, ensuring global environmental health? How do you see growth of green economy in the coming decades?
Well, it's a very important question, but a very big question. It requires a lot of answers. But I can tell you, if you look at IPCC report for to address climate change, there are adequate technologies available for both reducing emissions and for adapting to climate change. In agriculture, in forest, there are many things you can do to adapt to climate change. You don't need to sacrifice your lifestyle. Instead of using electricity coming from coal plant, shift to solar energy. What's the problem? You harvest forest, but manage forest sustainably, grow forest plantation sustainably, harvest it, recycle plastic, use water, recycle water. There are many ways where you can minimize the damage on environment and also live comfortably.
Dharini Sharma is saying, Thank you very much, sir, for such a great and informative session. My question is, there are so many pacts, deals, and agreements are signed regarding climate change. Do you really think countries and governments on individual level are really doing or making some rules or policies to handle this issue?
No, that's what, as I told you, in 2015, before Paris Agreement, all governments are asked to tell voluntarily what you will do. India has given, will grow forests in 30 million hectares, to sequester 3 billion tons of carbon. They have said we'll have 40% electricity from renewables. So governments have made these commitments. So now we have to take stock. The world has to take stock. US has made commitments, Russia, everyone has made commitments, what they will do. And now they will assess and say, okay, what we all know it's not adequate. That means we have to do more. But unfortunately, many countries, they are not even sticking to what they have promised. And unfortunately, COVID crisis has made things even worse. Governments have no interest, no time, no money to invest in environmental protection and solar energy and so on. So it's a difficult challenge, but let us wait and see what governments will do in Glasgow in November 2021.
Anyone wants to ask anything else?
So
So
thank you, Neha.
that's all. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much on behalf of faculty, students of Department of Environmental Studies, Indraprastha College for Women. I would like to extend my gratitude to all of you present here for this special lecture session for the online certificate course on climate committee and conservation. First of all, I would like to thank Professor N.H. Ravindranath. Thank you so much, sir, for such an engrossing lecture. It was a great privilege and it was a great learning experience to listen to you today, sir. And in the end, the engrossing question and answer session in the end was cherry on the cake. I'm sure all of us are going to take a lot from today's session. Thank you so much, sir, for making it a memorable evening for us. Now, I would also like to extend gratitude to Coordinator, Center for Earth Studies, Dr. Anindita Roy Saha, for helping us in conceptualizing the course and also for her constant support in organizing it. Now, I would like to thank all the faculty members present here today with us, and last but not the least, all the participants from all across the country. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us. And again, thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invite and giving us a memorable evening. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. The
Thank you.
participants may leave now. Thank you, everyone.